It's every young man's dream to have like a fantasy factory. But for me, with like, let's say call it $1 million build out, I would just sit there lonely and bored. But now if I can invite 1 million subscribers to come play with me, and I sound like a child, a 39-year-old man-child who just wants to have a half pipe and have kids come skate with me. Yeah. Like, that's all I want.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I have this LLC already. I just keep doing stuff with that.
Yeah. Cool. We're rolling. Well, yo, thanks for coming, Nick.
My pleasure.
I'm Kat, your host of the BeRad Podcast. I'd like to start out this podcast by asking, who are you to the community? You're
Which
known,
community?
Exactly. You're a professional runner or former professional runner, YouTuber, started this business, RunGum. If you were to describe yourself to someone who didn't know what you did, what would you tell them?
It really depends on how old the person is that asks. So if a 13-year-old comes up and says, what do you do for a living? I just look them dead in the eye and say, I'm a YouTuber. And they go nuts. Yeah. They go crazy. But if a 55-year-old asked me what I did and I said that, they'd roll their eyes.
Yeah,
So I say I'm in marketing.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, I would say I'm a content creator marketer. Mm-hmm. But my passion's YouTube. My, follow-up passion to YouTubing is syndicating that content everywhere I can. Mm-hmm. So we're active on every single platform. And then, with that community, how can I, not only motivate them to get out and be active, how can I facilitate their love for their fitness? And I think RunGum's a great example of that. As I wanted to get somebody off the couch, out the door, and go do something.
Yeah.
So it packs a big dose of energy, gets you out the door, and,
and
go run or go lift or go do something.
Yeah, you can't sit on the couch if you just choose RunGum.
And I always say, I don't care what you're passionate about. It could be yoga, it could be cycling. There's no right or wrong answer, but you got to do something every day. Mm-hmm. And even just walking. Like, I just found a love for walking recently, if you can believe it.
Oh my God. Is it because your dog? Is that where the love
It's because I'm too old to run like I want to. Like, how old are you?
Yeah.
You're young.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of miles left in your tires.
I know. And it's
Enjoy
it's good.
it.
And I like the walking part too. So, it's.
Well, I didn't understand walking when I was like in my 20s.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can see so much more if you run. It's way more fun.
Yeah.
But now running hurts so much on my knees and my hips. But I can go out for a 10, 15 mile walk and just get the same clear my head, get my thoughts in order, see nature, but not ache quite as bad at the end.
Yeah, did you say 10, 15 mile or
yeah. Oh, yeah. So every Sunday I go for a really long walk.
Wow.
Maybe not 10 or 15 miles, but
yeah. I mean, sometimes.
Sometimes when we're hiking, 10 or 15
I
miles.
love that because you don't publish a lot about your walks as far as I've seen. I scrolled through your stuff today. And so that's something that's truly for you.
I did have this one Instagram post where I was just like walking, like, guys, I've discovered a new form of exercising. It's called walking and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. How about in the winter months?
I don't mind. So we're in Eugene. It's like, even our bad days are like cold and rainy. It's not that bad.
Raining.
You get used to it. No, we're talking about skinning and skiing. I love doing that if it's snowy out. I got snowshoes. Like, we find a way to get active. And I also think there's no excuse for anything. Like, if you layer right, there's pretty much no condition that you can't go out in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I recently found out how much I dislike the cold, and I come from a skiing background. I had a relationship with Dina Fit for a long time. Yeah, I hate the cold.
Okay.
And I feel like it slowly wore on me and
grinds you down.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm spending winters in Hawaii.
Yeah, real rough.
Yeah.
No, but I got the same way when I was running, professionally. I got to the point where, 40 and sleeting when you're running 10 miles is not okay. Like, it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I told my coach, I was like, listen, I can't do a winter in Oregon anymore. He's like, good, go to Australia.
Yeah, is that what you did?
Yeah. For like 5 years, every winter, about right after Christmas, I'd pack my bags and I'd go to central Mexico or Australia, wherever I could chase the sun.
I know, that's where it's getting to me. Carson calls me a lizard because I just need sun on my skin. But I think half of that is just trying to beat my head against the wall, running in the snow.
If you weren't running, how many miles a week are you doing right now?
I'm building right now. Like, I top out at like maybe 100. I'll probably go up to 120.
That's wild. So you're spending hours and hours a day outside. Like, it's way better to be in dry, sunny weather. even if it's cold, but
Yeah.
dry and sunny as opposed to cold and rainy.
But
if you weren't running, I don't think you'd necessarily feel the same.
I think you might be right. And I think also with running to that so many miles, like I'm just much leaner, and that contributes to being cold all the
Absolutely.
time. Yeah.
Especially if you get wet.
I know, it's brutal. And I have Raynaud, so my hands just like won't function. But yeah, so what does it say on your tax returns, just out of curiosity?
Well, that's a really good question. So personal or business?
Either. So
Nick Symmonds.
That's who
but
I business.
Nicholas Boone Symmonds, 39 this month. I'm getting used to that. And on the business, just Nick Symmonds LLC. So Nick Symmonds LLC is a business that I created way back in like 2009 to handle my pro running career. All the money that came in from shoe deals or prize money, appearance fees, all came through there. And it's a single member LLC, so then I'd pay myself. But there are a lot of tax advantages to that.
Yeah.
And then when I retired, it went to zero because all the deals went to zero. And I almost canceled it. I was like, I'm just going to get rid of this LLC. Like, I don't want to pay the $300 fee or whatever it costs to maintain this. And my wife said, well, don't do that. Just become an influencer. And I'm like, I'm not going to create YouTube videos. TikTok wasn't even around at that point. She's like, why don't you start a YouTube channel? And so kind of a lot of people had been chirping at me to start a YouTube channel, and I finally did it. And then the money that came via the YouTube channel or Instagram or now TikTok all just goes through Nick Symmonds LLC.
Yeah.
But still a single member LLC.
And so does it say on your tax returns, is your business, is it YouTuber? Is it content creator?
Good question. I think I put marketing.
Marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's how we make all our money is via the, ad integrations and the ads that YouTube runs on the videos.
Yeah. I love that question because I get that, all the time. Like, what do you do for work? And it's complicated, but it says pro athlete on my tax returns, but I don't like to talk about that. So I just say I do contract work, and people are like,
I think even as a pro athlete, I didn't put pro athlete. I think I just put marketing.
Really?
It's just an overall, because when you're going through the list of things that you can click on, and not just on an IRS site, but any site, you have to say like what industry you're in. There's always a marketing tab.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Did you have a good tax person to help you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. He's back in Boise, and I've been working with him for, I don't know, well over a decade. So he used to joke, he's like, your taxes are so complicated because I have to file in 10 different states, and I have to submit these foreign tax credits to all the countries you raced in. Yeah. It's like it keeps me on my toes at least.
I know. Same here. It's crazy. But when you're a pro athlete on your tax returns, you can write off 40 to 60% off of your groceries. Which is so huge.
What I did was with my LLC is just create a separate bank account for the LLC. So I kept track of everything that came in there and everything that went out. And I still do that today. Like, the YouTube channel got really expensive to run.
I'm sure.
How many people we employ and all the stuff that we're doing. But everything comes through one account and everything goes out through one account. So at the end of the year, I can send that all to the accountants and say, write it all off. And
amazing. So you retired in 2017 as a pro athlete. You were 800 meter specialist.
Yeah.
And you mentioned right before this podcast that you did like a farewell video on YouTube, and that's kind of how your YouTube videos started.
Yeah.
How did it progress from there?
Well, the first few weeks were just me vlogging, like the last couple weeks as a pro. I knew my career was coming to an end. I didn't want to say goodbye to the fans. My business partner, my COO, Tiana, my wife, everyone was like, start a YouTube channel. But I don't know how to edit video. And I thought like you really had to be a great video editor to start a YouTube channel. You don't. You can literally just talk to an iPhone. I actually have a friend who got to 300,000 subscribers with just an iPhone. So like,
that's crazy.
There's a famous saying in photography and in videography, use the camera you got, right? And we all have at least a camera.
Yeah.
So I started that way and got to about 10,000 subs just, vlogging. And then I was like, well, I don't think I can vlog at this rate any longer. So why don't I just give you guys the content you want? DM me your questions on Instagram and I'll answer one each week. And so still just talking to camera. I think I actually bought a little tripod so I didn't have to hold it anymore. So like already investing back into the business. And I would answer a question, Nick, what kind of weekly mileage should a high schooler be running? It's the kind of question where there's a lot of people that want to know the answer, but it is also such a complicated answer, I can't respond in just a little text. For me to properly answer that question is a 10-minute video, easily. Just talking about background and, how durable you are and how fastly you can build year over year and all the different things that go into weekly mileage. And so I'd make a video like that, and that kind of creeped up to about 30,000 subscribers. And then I felt like I'd answered every question, like the questions that were coming in, I'm like, just sending links to videos. And I'm like, well, what's the next move? And so we hired a videographer. His name's Ryan Ewert. He's still working for me. He's our director of content, because now we have content going in so many different directions. But at the time, he was just Nick's videographer. Yeah. And we would just kind of riff like different ideas. And I'm like, well, maybe we could make a video coming out of starting blocks, and maybe we could make a video, and they're still very running focused. And I remember about 6 months of that, when we weren't really growing fast, just kind of banging our head against the wall in this running niche. And he was about to go on his honeymoon. And I'm like, Ryan, take 2 weeks, think of some ideas. When you come back, we only make viral videos. That's who we are. Mm-hmm. And he came back with a bunch of ideas, and I had a bunch of ideas. And the best one we thought of was Olympic runner sets new world record in ski boots for 100 meters. I'm like, it's silly. Yeah. You're going to want to see it. Like, the thumbnail was amazing. And so we shot it. It took like, 15 seconds to shoot it. I think I ran 13.7 or something. And so with a little intro and an outro, we launched it, and it just went viral like crazy, like 250,000 views. Wow. For a channel that's averaging like 20 or 30,000 views. We were just like, it worked. And so the follow-up video was Olympic runner 1 mile world record ... dribbling a basketball. Yeah. So all of a sudden we became this, like, I'm using gimmicky in the best sense of it. Like, what's something that's fun and silly and related to sport that people will watch? And that's all we did. And it just exploded. I mean, we did one video, beat me in a race, win $100, where I just set up 2 cones on a running trail. And if anyone could beat me, they won $100. No one did at the time. I was still a pretty good runner then. And it got 7 million views. And all of a sudden, my revenue, which is like barely break even. I mean, I'm talking like a couple $1,000s a month, and I'm giving it all to Ryan. All of a sudden, we're doing like $10,000 or $20,000 a month.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could actually make money on this. Yeah. And then so I hired a couple more people, and we're a team of 5 now. YouTubers predominantly, first and foremost YouTubers. But that content gets syndicated on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, you name it, the content's there. But it all, comes from YouTube, essentially. Yeah.
So did the passion for creating this YouTube channel come first for relating to your fans, or did it come because you love doing fun videos question. And creating the content? Do you like the process of the creation? Like, where did this come from that you were like, I'm going to retire and become a YouTube star? I want to make this a career.
I don't know that I was quite confident enough that I could pull it off and get to become a YouTube star. I thought, I have this audience that just followed me for 12 years as a pro runner, and I don't want to say goodbye to them. Like, I was the runner that, like, I liked running, sort of. Like, you love training. I get that. I hated training. I hated it. I sort of liked racing, like, especially if I did well, then I liked the racing. But I was obsessed with the audience, the fans. I just, like, everyone would kind of roll their eyes, like, oh, we got to go sign autographs. That was my favorite part. I mean, maybe it's just an ego thing. I don't know. Yeah. But I loved nothing more than these kids lining up to get a picture or an autograph. I'm like, I don't know why they like me or what I'm about, but if this little, like, 8-year-old with, the big eyes, it's going to make his day. And I just wanted to, like, not let those people down. I didn't want to say goodbye to them. Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, well, hey, guys, follow me over on YouTube because you're not going to see me on the track anymore. And that's what it was initially. Then as it started to grow, I'm not going to lie, it was another ego stroke. It's like, I loved that they loved me on the track, and now they love what I'm doing here on YouTube. And that carried me for a while because I still wasn't making a lot of money. And then now it's a combination of, I would say there's still an ego aspect to it. I love when we launch a video and people like it. But more than anything, I think it's so much fun. Like, I always kind of like joke. I'm like, I just can't believe I get paid to do this. Like, running was fun, and being a pro runner was a good career. Yeah. And I certainly for a long time would have done it for free. But, like, I just love YouTubing. Like, my biggest fear in the world is that, like, I'll lose the audience, or, like, I won't be able to YouTube professionally anymore. I just love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. You definitely seem like a TV personality. And this is like the new age TV.
Well, I also, companies like Nike and Brooks and USATF invested a lot of money in training me to be on camera. And so, like, I like being on camera. It's, like, my wife hates it. Camera comes on and she just, like, immediately shuts off. She's like, I hate cameras.
That's so
funny. I'm like, oh, I don't mind them.
Yeah.
I like cameras.
That's perfect, because I was going to ask, as someone who likes all that attention, and and likes, you know, I say ego stroke and not a bad way.
No, I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's healthy to acknowledge it, right?
Exactly.
And say, hey, we all have an ego, and some of us need our ego stroked once in a while.
Yeah, everyone does. Yeah. And I think ignoring it, that's when it becomes toxic. But how do you balance that in relationship, you know?
That's a really good question. Like my personal relationship with my wife,
yeah,
or my employees.
I'm super curious about your relationship with your wife, but also with your employees.
Well, my wife, we balance each other out really well. She loves that I love being in the spotlight. She doesn't want it for herself, and I think in some cases there's aspects to it that bother her a little bit. You know, like showing certain. She doesn't like me to show parts of the house. You know, or she doesn't like to show. We kind of keep the audience a little bit at hand's length when it comes to like the home stuff. And I think that's really healthy. And it's also a kind of a sanctuary for me. Like if I'm having, you know, a rough day at work, or that the videos aren't popping, or, you know, something goes wrong, like I can go back to my house and retreat a little bit. So she helps keep things very balanced. She likes playing a supportive role. She's actually leaving her job to come work for the company.
No way.
Yes. She has a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, great job doing tech sales, for a SaaS company in Seattle. And she's like, I just know I can grow your business. Like she goes, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I just know exactly what we need to do to make your business like 10x.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you do, because I don't. So, you know, hiring smart people and then letting them tell you what needs to happen has always been a mantra of mine. Like I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I know very little actually. But I'm pretty good at finding great talent and then saying, all right, how do we run this? Like, what's the playbook? You know, and if their playbook doesn't work, then you pivot. But more often than not, especially with these like young, talented people we were talking about.
Yeah.
My wife's 29 this month, and she can do marketing. She can do sales. She's a person that can actually get shit done. You know, and I'm kind of up in the clouds, like with ideas, but like she's going to bring a lot to the business.
That's amazing. That's my philosophy too, as someone who is recognized as, you know, people perceive me as being able to do a lot, but it's just being around people way smarter than me. And I feel like it's helped me be successful.
I think every good business or every good, you know, entity needs a dreamer and somebody with their head in the clouds, and especially me with my brain just bouncing like a ping pong ball in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
And someone needs to wrangle that and channel it.
Yeah.
And that's where my team comes in. Ryan is just so freaking steady.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to creating content, he gets the projects done. He makes sure the content gets delivered on time, high quality every time. And Tiana's probably the best at wrangling me, you know, and being like, hey, don't forget you got to do this. And then, you know, my brain just bouncing around. I have ideas all the time of where we could take the content, where we could create new revenue streams, other brand deals that we could be doing. And so I kind of just like pitch those to my team and then let them run with it.
Yeah. So you need tethers back to earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Me too. I'm the same way. So I'm really interested in what you just said, but before I lose it, I want to ask you about your fans and when you were racing. Because your fans were so important to you, did that ever add any external pressure to race well or to perform well? And how did you cope with that if it did?
Yeah, especially when I was young, like when I first turned pro, I was the D3 kid, remember? Like I didn't go to a D1 school.
Yeah.
So when I turned pro, it was like the first time a D3 kid was like ranked number 1 in the US. I mean, not the first time, but like it doesn't happen very often. So I felt like I had all of Division 3 athletics watching me, you know, with their hopes and dreams for a D3 kid to make an Olympic team. And that was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Then I made the Olympic team and, you know, found some consistency winning US titles. And I would say that, you know, halfway through my career, I wanted to put on a show for them, but I knew that what they wanted to see were titles and medals. And as a runner, you can only be on for a few weeks out of the year. And so I kind of like cultivated this be patient mantra for myself and a be patient mantra for the fans of when it comes time to really perform well on the biggest stage, that's when you can count on me. And so, I mean, I won 6 US titles outdoors, made every team I ever tried out for, was pretty consistent at making the global finals and won a medal. And so I think I did well at overperforming when it counted, but I laid a lot of bad races out there as a result of not being fit in April, not being sharp in May, really focusing on the end of the season. So my fans were always there for me. They were like, oh, he's going to do it again. Just wait till championship season. But the detractors were always like, he's too old. He's done. And so you use both of those to kind of get you through a season.
Yeah. So like a chip on your shoulder while also wanting to put on a show for your supporters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was really 50-50 for me. Some people only train for the haters, and I think that's kind of unhealthy. Like, I'm going to prove you guys wrong. And some people only train for the fans. Healthier, but still maybe not the same motivation that you have. So I always kind of channeled my fury from both groups. Like, one, I'm going to definitely prove you wrong. And two, it's going to feel so good when we accomplish this together, And that helped me a lot through a 12-year pro career.
Yeah, that's so cool. Why weren't you ever fit in April and May?
So fit is very relative in the world of running and track and field. I was fit and actually ran my best miles in April and May. But we, as track and field athletes that were peaking for August or September, I would come down from altitude at the end of April. So in some ways, I was the fittest I was going to be all year from an endurance standpoint, but no sharpness.
Yeah, no.
And the 800 is this perfect balance where you have to be really strong, but also really fast.
Yeah.
And you can't maintain that speed for 4 to 6 months. So I'd come down from altitude May 1st, hit a mile, usually sub 4 miles somewhere. Then I'd say, all right, check that box. Now it's time to start transitioning to speed-specific intervals, start adding a little speed, and slowly building, those race-specific horrible workouts that you have to do to be an 800-meter runner, and ultimately sharpen up just at the right time to hit championship season.
I was an 800-meter specialist.
Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I never went pro, but I was like a high school phenom.
It's a great race.
Yeah, I ran a 2:07 in high school, then never did anything close again.
Well, I think running on grade 800 in high school is one thing.
Yeah.
And running a grade 800 in college is another thing. At the pro level, I was doing 70 miles a week as a half miler.
Yeah.
I would do 14-mile long runs every Sunday. And people are like, but you only run 2 laps. I'm like, you don't understand the 800 at that level.
Yeah.
You have to be able to hammer a half marathon every weekend, but still show up on Tuesday to run 22-second 200s.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of athlete that I was for a long time. It's just always ready to, always just a few months away from being ready to go.
Yeah, and that's super impressive. What gets me about the 800 is just in such a short race, you have to have so many different gears. And that's why I think I wasn't successful, among a lot of other reasons. But I was the type of runner I'd go out first and hang on for dear life.
Yeah.
And,
if you don't have the explosive
Yeah.
last gear or the ability to change gears really fast, it's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, you have to be able to.
And see,
change
I didn't
gears.
have the ability to go out fast. My
Yeah.
47-400 PR was the slowest in the race by 2 seconds oftentimes.
Wow.
But I could change gears faster than anybody. If a move was made, me and whoever made the move, or me if I made the move first, I had 2-3 yards on everybody instantly.
Yeah.
So I could hit the accelerator and have instant torque, but I didn't have the best top end gear.
Yeah, I was just like, I gotta risk it for the biscuit because I have no kick.
Yeah. Well, good. You found distance running. Long distance running is
very
perfect for
long
you.
distance running.
Yeah.
So, a lot has changed in how runners interact with their fans now and in brand relationships with the growth of social media in the last 10 years. How were you able to curate such a loyal fan base when social media just started?
I remember my first social media account. You're too young.
Yeah.
So this will date me real quick. The first social media account I had was a Facebook account when you still had to have a .edu address to get a Facebook account. I remember my junior year, these sorority girls running around from house to house collecting signatures so that Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg would allow Willamette University onto the platform. That's how old this was, you know? And I'm like, this is so stupid. We're just poking people and sending little notifications. And then Twitter came around and I thought that was kind of cool just to interact with celebrities and other people. And then that faded out and Instagram popped up. And through all of these rise of these different social media companies, it hit me probably right around 2010 to 2012, where I could tell that the people who were getting paid the best had this great following online.
Yeah.
Lolo Jones is a great example. Lolo never won a global gold medal. Maybe she won indoors, but she didn't win an outdoor medal. But she was getting these huge contracts.
Yeah.
Because she was so good on social media. And I'm like, well, I know I'm never going to be the best 800-meter runner, but I could be the most entertaining 800-meter runner.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, I'm going to try to be the most entertaining, most accessible pro male runner that there is. And that will get me better contracts. And I think to a certain extent it did. Like, you have to deliver on, the priority number one, which is running well. And I was able to do that. But then, after my morning session, while I'm just sitting there on the couch, I'm DMing people, responding to DMs. I'm answering their questions on Instagram. I'm like, I wouldn't call it creating content because it wasn't really a thing at the time. But I'm like, I'm just going to be accessible, That's going to set me apart. And so that built this like really loyal community of people that, wanted to cheer me on during races and wanted to buy the shoes that I was wearing, and Brooks recognized that really early.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brooks. When Nike still just wanted to use, the biggest names in sport and the hot young athletes coming out of college, Brooks was like, Nick's getting way more eyeballs than those kids. So we'll come on over. And I trained with Brooks for 4 years and it was awesome. But, Brooks really like empowered me to be the best content creator. And again, we still weren't using that term at the time. It was influencer. But they're like, hey, go influence people and get them to buy Brooks shoes. And I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Did you have different incentives to, because even since I've been gone pro, my contracts have changed a little bit. And
I've seen these new contracts.
Yeah.
I would have dreaded these contracts as a pro runner.
Really? I mean, mine's not too bad. I don't have any explicit requests for social media, but there's an expectation there for sure. And it's not a written expectation. And I'm lucky.
Some of them are. Yeah. They're like, you need to be posting this amount of time per month. You need to be doing this, And I, as a content creator, those are the contracts I get now.
Yeah.
It's like, we want X, Y, and Z out of you, and we will pay you, this much for that.
Why would a younger you have dreaded that then?
Not necessarily younger, but somebody whose primary focus was running well. It was important to me as a runner that at any point I could shove everything to the side and say, leave me alone. I need to train right now.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any other businesses really. I didn't like contracts with like really weird deliverables or like contracts where they could like demand that I come, be on site for a little while. I was like, hey, if things aren't going well and I need to peace out to Mexico for 2 months to train, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the way that the contracts are written right now, it's a little harder to be able to do that, I think.
It is. And I think the expectation on the athlete is much higher.
Much higher.
And here I am considered a full-time pro and I do so much more. And I do think it takes away from my training and something that I'm trying to get better at is what you said. And especially but
it's cyclical, right? There's off season and there's base building where you're like, oh, I kind of want to be doing something else. But then there's like go time, and you're like, I don't want anyone to call me. I don't want anyone to text me. I mean, I would shut my phone off for a week around championship races.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't bother me. I have stuff to do.
I know. Good for you. Did that affect your relationships at all with brands?
I didn't have relationships.
Yeah. No, with brands.
No. Back then, they understood because they were like, this is go time. And I think they liked seeing that. They're like, Nick's kind of a spaz case over here, but when it counts, he can actually focus for 1 week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as relationships, I didn't have a lot of relationships, serious relationships as a pro runner. I just couldn't because, again, I'm like, hey, I know you want to spend time together, but I'm going to Australia for a couple months. I'll see you. Didn't work real well.
Yeah. Were you able to find good training partners in Australia and Mexico?
Yeah. So usually the way these training camps would work is you'd kind of find somebody that you wanted to train with and then just, piggyback on their trip or set something up together. So like Leo Manzano had a training base down in central Mexico in San Luis Potosi. And he was always talking to me like, hey, I know you love Mexico. You've trained in Mexico before. Come train at my camp. And so I'd go with Leo Manzano and train with him for a couple months. Or my good friend from Australia, who was the Australian national champion, Lucky Renshaw. He's like, come down and run our circuit in the winter. So as you're training and touring with these people, you'd be talking about where you'd want to spend the next winter, and then you just kind of pair up. So it was always kind of like 50% where do I want to go, 50% who can I train with, and 50% what can I afford? Australia isn't cheap.
Yeah. I go into Hawaii for the winter. I'm like, it's tough to find people to train with in these spots, and iron sharpens iron. I need someone a little faster than me.
I didn't really start doing that travel until later in my career. So at that point, I was number 1 in the U.S. and like top 5 in the world. So I could call up people and be like, hey, come train. And they would jump at the opportunity. And sometimes I, could supplement their tickets or something if I needed to. But OTC was great. OTC Elite, the team I ran for a long time. they'd supplement people and send Tyler Mulder with me, or send somebody to train with me. Brooks did the same thing.
Yeah,
so it worked
that's huge.
Yeah,
we're trying to get I'm with Brooks now, and I'm trying to get my manager to sponsor a couple athletes to come train and live with me for a few months, so we can do and that's what's lacking in trail is that team atmosphere. And we really need to build
there's
that.
a lot fewer of you. No offense, it's great, but it's hard to find somebody at that level. Whereas there's a whole lot of women that want to be great 800-meter runners, and you can just recruit from college.
Exactly.
But at your level and in your niche, there's not a lot of people that can keep up with you.
I know. Luckily, I think it's training because there's a lot of crossover in the marathon. I have a lot of incentives in my contract to run a fast marathon still.
Have you run one?
Yeah, I ran 2:43 in 2018, but I crewed a 50-miler the day before, so it was 16 hours on foot, and I didn't train. So I would really like to run in the low 2:30s.
I think that's very doable.
Yeah.
What's the trials qualifier?
I think now A standard's 2:37.
You can crush that.
Yeah, I would really like to. It would be super fun. And 2:43 qualified me for B.
Okay.
But I didn't go in Atlanta in 2020. But hopefully I can get a lot of people to train. And that crossover with trail and marathon, I think, just makes better trail runners, honestly.
I think trail runners should be training for road races, and I think road runners should be training for trail races. It was always weird to me. These brands would be like, hey, we want to work with you, but we want to know, can you run on trails? I'm like, yeah. I do it every single day.
I know.
They really thought he's a track runner, so he does all of his miles on the track.
Yeah.
Or you're a road runner, so you can never run on the trails. I'm like, guys, we're trying to get 10 to 20 miles in a day. We'll run on anything.
Yeah. And I think you're actually wrong. And for a lot of other track and road athletes, I think they're so afraid to get hurt on trails.
I know those athletes.
Yeah.
I know those athletes. I'm the Eagle Scout from Boise, Idaho. I spent all day in the trails. I maybe am a little different. I know some athletes that will only do their mileage on treadmills.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
so crazy.
Kill
me first.
Yeah, seriously. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. But you're absolutely right. There are a lot of athletes out there that are intimidated by running through single track in the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
And I'm you're going to be fine.
You're going to be fine. And even
if you're not, it'll make you a little stronger. You have stabilizer muscles that you haven't been using that you should be using.
Exactly. I was just going to say it's going to highlight your weaknesses. And I think trail running makes for a really strong athlete. I ran that marathon only on trail miles. I was running one road workout a week.
I think a trail runner translates to the road better than a road runner translates to the trail for sure.
Yeah, and
they both have their time and place, because a road runner is going to be able to hit pace way better than a trail runner can.
Yeah.
And understanding pace is so important.
Exactly.
Especially if you want to run that marathon.
And that marathon, but even in the 100-mile distance, the going off perceived effort is so important, because we're pushing limits at how fast you can do 100 miles. I ran 100K a few years ago, and I had 1835K at the end of it. We're pushing exactly what we can do. And to do that, you really have to be familiar with what that pace feels like.
Yeah.
But I also think that just getting that turnover in for marathon training, which is funny saying that for an
turnover.
800.
You get that speed, I'm like, I think our definition of speed could be
a little bit different.
But the periodization's the same. The mentality behind when you start drip feeding that speed in and how you start tapering for a race is the same.
But I think having quick turnover on the roads and the track translates really well to trails, because you have to be dynamic and you have to be able to react quickly to obstacles in the trail, and you can only do that with fast turnover.
That makes sense.
It makes when I've been my fastest and sharpest, I've been the best at technical downhills, which I think is really interesting and counter to what I think a lot of track athletes might think.
No, we're just braking the whole time.
I know.
And then my knees hurt.
Yeah, you got to send it.
You can have it. You can have it.
Yeah. So, I have this written down here, and I think it's so interesting after getting to know you a little bit better in this last half an hour or so. I said pro athlete, arrow, rest, star, chaotic lifestyle. And I think what I'm trying to ask here is you clearly have this crazy chaotic lifestyle. You're being pulled in all these different directions, and you have a ton of passions. How did that translate to being this great 800 runner? And how does it translate into your passions now? How do you channel that chaos
Yeah.
to be really successful.
I think I was a good 800-meter runner, and I could have been a great 800-meter runner with more focus, but that's just not who I am. Like, you know, I remember like telling my coach, hey, you just need to understand that every Friday I'm going to go fishing, and I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Like, if I don't have that, then why am I doing any of this? You know, because fishing, it was and it still is kind of like my religion, just like getting out, getting away, pressing the reset button, being in nature. And, you know, I would do a lot of stuff that probably the typical pro runner doesn't do, or that you wouldn't think they do. But, you know, I didn't touch alcohol from Sunday through Friday night, but I drank a lot on Saturday nights. And again, that was just about longevity and saying, I'm just so stressed out through the whole week, but I can't drink alcohol because I have a workout tomorrow morning and I need to stay lean, and the kind of the neuroses that comes with training at that level. I'm like, all right, well, one day a week, I'm not a runner. Saturday, I'm going to do my workout. Then I'm going to go home and eat whatever I want. And I'm going to drink a 12-pack of beer, and I'm going to be a kid. And I think that it cost me a little bit in performance. There's no doubt about that. But what I got back was longevity. I loved my career, and I was able to do it for 12 years because if Friday night all my friends are going out, I'm like, well, I don't have to give that up forever. I just got to give it up for 24 more hours. So I was able to always kind of find this balance between being a kid still and doing all the things I wanted to do, but still training really, really hard. I think I probably could have run a little bit faster, maybe say a quarter second faster than the 8, maybe a half second faster. And maybe I win a big medal because of it. But I probably flame out really, really quickly because I can't do that kind of focus. You know?
And I was going to say, I might disagree, because having been someone who's tried to just beat my chaotic nature out of me, I did not run well because I was...
A lot of people don't.
Exactly.
You know, you got to have the balance still. And so I don't play the what if game. Like, what if I'd been a little bit more focused, you know, in these years? Probably what would have happened was I would have burned out. So I think there's that. Now it's a little bit better because I just kind of can focus where I want to focus my energy. I think my biggest downfall now is that I'm motivated by having a good time and doing what I want to do. And sometimes the way my chaotic life is like, oh my gosh, I need to focus on YouTube right now. No, wait, I need to focus on my training. No, wait, what about RunGum? Oh, my relationship with my wife. So like I'm kind of like bouncing. And it prevents me from being really great at any one thing, you know? And so now as I get a little bit older and recognize this about myself, it's like, okay, how do I minimize all the things that aren't absolutely essential to what's going to be great for me and my family in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, what are the things that I don't need to focus on right now? RunGum's a good example. I was the CEO of that company for 8 years, and it took a lot of time and energy from me. And I recognized that I could be a really great CEO, but it was going to cost me in a lot of other areas. And so I went to our board and our advisors and our investors. I said, I think we should hire a CEO. It's very rare that a founder CEO like tells the board he wants to hire his replacement or her replacement. Typically, they're kind of kicked out. I was like, we can get someone in this spot that's way better than I am and allow me to go focus on being a great content creator.
Which will only help RunGum.
And that's what I thought. And that's what they agreed. I think they knew that I was in over my head at that point anyway. So it was all good.
Like,
but now I'm trying to do that even more. It's like, okay, so right now the two most important things in my life are my family and YouTube. How do I just minimize everything else that is not family and YouTube? And now I'm actually going to marry the two together because my wife's coming to work for the YouTube channel. So
that's
like,
so awesome.
I think it's going to be really awesome. I think that everything I do moving forward needs to be just pushing things aside and focusing on the things that are absolutely critical. And typically the people that have the most success are able to do that. I'm not good at it. So I have to really force myself and surround myself with people that, Nick, come on over here. You still need to do this.
And so you're still finding, you and your wife are still finding a role for her. And
we know what her role is going to be. It's mainly short form content. Like I love long form content. Like, let's go make a 20-minute video. Let's make it the best 20-minute video we can make. This new form of content, and I'm going to blame TikTok, who then, you know, Instagram Reels copied and Facebook Reels copied, and everybody's copying short form content, YouTube Shorts. I don't get it. I don't like to consume it. I don't like to create it, but you have to have it. And so T's going to come on and lead up our short form content side of things. Cool. She's going to be making Reels. She's going to be making YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and then probably the most critical part of her job is helping me with the Nick Symmonds Fit app. So I have my own app. I publish all my training there. And right now it's kind of like bare bones of what my training is. And I'm like, let's really go all in on showing people what my training is really like. Every single workout I do, explain why I do it, what it is, how they can modify it, how they can make it their own, how they can have fun with fitness.
Yeah.
That's going to be probably the centerpiece of her responsibility.
Cool.
NickSymmondsFitApp.com.
What is your? Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
What are you training for right now?
Just to be not in pain.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare all your younger audience. It's not that bad. But if you don't move, what is it? To rest is to rust. If you're not moving every day, it's gonna hurt. If I go and do a CrossFit class Monday through Friday, and I don't know that CrossFit's for everybody, but it's a very fun workout. So I do a CrossFit class Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, I deadlift because I'm training for kind of this deadlift goal we can talk about more. And then Sundays, I go for a long walk. So I'm working out 7 days a week. But if I don't move, and it'll be really noticeable at the end of the day. If I don't work out that day, everything just hurts. My back hurts, my knees hurt, my shoulders hurt.
Yeah.
But if I do a workout, I kind of feel pretty good all day.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And let me tell you, I had so many anti-strength coaches in my career. And,
really?
Starting in high school, to my collegiate career and beyond. And I feel so much better. I just started weightlifting.
Yeah.
My back pain is gone.
I always say, every athlete training for any distance needs weightlifting.
Yeah.
It will make you a better runner. It'll make you a happier runner. It'll make you a stronger runner. And everyone's like, I don't want to bulk up. I don't want to bulk up. I'm like,
I know.
You're not going to bulk up just by lifting a weight. Okay, you're going to have to consume a lot of calories. You're going to have to cut your miles way back. Just lifting a weight will not inherently bulk you up.
Yeah. And it also sucks to feel weak all the time as a runner. I would be so embarrassed having such a hard time carrying my groceries in. I'd be like, damn it.
No, it's true.
But
I think it's great that you've added that in. I think it'll make you a better distance runner for sure. Yeah. We saw that with Sally Kipyego. She came over from Kenya, couldn't do one push-up, and by the end of her OTC career, she was, doing pull-ups and push-ups and lifting heavy weights, and it was amazing to watch her career just go through the roof, So I'm loosely training to deadlift 500 pounds straight into a sub 5-minute mile. This was when I retired. Wow. I was like, I would love to marry my two favorite things, lifting and running together. And Ryan Hall kind of put a bug in my ear. He's like, you should train to do a 500-pound deadlift and go straight into a sub 5-minute mile. I'm like, oh, okay. This was 3 years ago, and I couldn't deadlift more than 300 pounds. But my mile was still 430. So now over the last 2.5 years of bulking up and doing deadlift, I can deadlift 495 pounds, but my mile's at 530. So it's this weird balance of two totally different systems. And I think about a month of altitude training, I could put them together and pull it off.
Yeah. And so cool because your wife will be able to travel with you.
Yeah. So we may go to
content.
We're actually talking right now about April, going back to Flagstaff, maybe train with Ryan, train with some of the pro runners, an all-in month at altitude where I'm still lifting heavy, but I'm cranking intervals at the same time. Then I come down from that and I take my official attempt. And then I put this thing to bed because I've been training for this for 2.5 years. So I'd love to be done with it.
I bet.
Move on to the next goal.
Yeah. What was your last attempt?
I actually set up 500 pounds at the track and had a whole crowd come out. I'm like, I'm going to need adrenaline. I'm going to need you guys cheering for me. And I went to pull it and I couldn't lift it up. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was very embarrassing. We're actually dropping a YouTube video on December 16th showing that scene.
Yeah.
And it's so embarrassing. Yeah. But I was like, this is a great story. I kind of hung my head in my hands and I was like, well, I guess I'll go back to training. And
That's so
just
funny.
Finishing up another 12-week build of deadlift. And I would be shocked if I don't pull 500 pounds next week.
Cool.
So,
yeah.
Knock on wood. I need this one.
Yeah. We'll be rooting for you.
Yeah,
You'll have to let me know.
I had to put on 30 pounds of muscle to be able to do that, which is something I always wanted to see if I could do. And with enough weightlifting and enough eating and zero running, I did it. But then I can't run a 4:45 mile this heavy.
Yeah.
So now it's okay, how much weight can I lose and still be able to pull 500? It's a neat physiologic challenge.
Yeah, and keeping that weight on the certain amount while at altitude and training, it's going to be so hard.
Yeah.
Altitude, it's really hard to stay fueled.
Well, that's why we'd go for the entire month of April, but I would go up weighing about 167 and come down 159 and just gorging myself with food. It would just melt off me up there.
Yeah, me too. I think the best thing for me right now is going to sea level to do my training in the winter, because I can't keep weight on, and I feel like I've trouble with iron and blah blah blah.
I think there's some athletes that can live and train at high altitude year round, and congratulations that you can do that. I wasn't that guy, but I got so much benefit out of 4 to 6 weeks, once a year, twice a year.
Yeah.
It was like, let me go up, do my work, and then come back down and breathe this awesome
and then you just
air.
appreciate what it feels like to be down here.
Yeah.
So in 2017, I think we're at kind of a cool point right now. It's been 5 years since you've retired. You've been doing the YouTube stuff for 5 years. And we've talked a lot about, the next 5 years. In 2017, where did you see yourself in 5 years?
I thought RunGum would become a $100 million company and we'd sell it and I'd go do something else. And it didn't happen. I think the pandemic kind of really kicked us in the knees a little bit. I think my distractions, I mean, they're a good distraction. They were good for the company, but like being focused so much on a content creator, while it was good for brand building, it totally took away from my ability to lead the team, so that's an example of like just me trying to do too much. But I would say like I was so passionate about the community. I knew we'd have a big community in some way. I didn't know whether like RunGum was going to have this huge community around it and I would lead the RunGum community as the leader of RunGum, or whether Nick Symmonds LLC and my content creation business would take off and I'd have the community there. But I knew that the most important thing to me was that the fans would continue to follow what we were doing. So I just needed that. I need the fans, and I love entertaining them. I love interacting with them. Right after this, I'll go to TRE, and I'm so excited just to like sign autographs and take pictures. I'm not selling anything this time. I'm just there to be with the community that I love. So I think that was really important. Moving forward, there's a famous saying that human beings overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. And I think about that constantly. I'm like, all right, I'm 365 days away from turning 40, and I guarantee I'm gonna overestimate what I can get done in a year, but what could I get done in 10? Like when I'm 50, and I go back and listen to this podcast, what could I get done in 10 years? And invariably, every human underestimates what they can accomplish. So I'm trying to really focus on dreaming bigger. What could I do with, unlimited funds? What could I do with unlimited energy and people and, this community that continues to support us? What could we do in 10 years? And it's like super scary to think about if you really push yourself, but that's probably where you need to be. Just like any athlete, you want to be in that position of like on the edge. Like I'm really trying to go push my training, push my goals, push my competition. Like I want to be on that edge where I'm scared to like fail. And that's kind of where I'm at in what I want to do in my 40s. But I need a lot of people to help out. Like we're going to have, my wife and I would like to have kids, so we're having conversations of like, well, we need support. What does that look like? Is that being closer to family? Is that bringing more employees on? Is that having a nanny that takes care of our kids and the kids of all the employees, because all of our employees are thinking about having families. So there's a lot of strategy that has to go in it. I'm glad I don't have to come up with it on my own necessarily, but
can I tell you, if you had daycare at your company,
wouldn't that be the greatest perk ever? Do you know how affordable it is?
No, I have no
clue. Oh my God. I mean, I'm pricing it out. You can get a full-time like tutor, like with a master's in education, to come run your facility for like $45 to $60K a year.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, that's insane. And it's the greatest perk you could ever offer. Why don't more companies do this?
People who look up to you will see it on YouTube, see that it's successful, see that you were able to grow your business. And I was just telling Carson this, as we're trying to grow our business and with the podcast and with a bunch of other projects we have. And we're like, you got to spend money to make money. And that's super scary. But I think people are just so tight that they're like, no childcare.
I'm the worst. I think, I think you nailed it that you have to spend money to make money. But a lot of times people don't know where to spend it. But I'm like, if employee retention is really important to me, then, and also not just employee retention, but having them focused when they're at work, then having on-site daycare so that, one, it's a great perk, but two, they don't have to be thinking about, well, I got to go pick up the kid or I got to do this or that. I think it'd be great for me. It'd be great for them. So I think that's probably something that we'll definitely offer.
And something that we talk about a lot is that time is our most valuable asset.
Yeah, for sure.
It's everything. And so if we can spend a little bit of money to sink time into what we're trying to grow,
and just brain power.
Grows. And it's brain power.
Yeah, it's brain power for sure. Because I'm always thinking like 10 different things I have to take care of. And if I can take one of those things off, that's a huge, great use of resources for my team too.
Yeah.
Like I don't want, Ryan, when he and his wife decide to have kids, I don't want him thinking, oh gosh, I got to worry about X, Y, and Z at home. I want him thinking like, at least I know the kids are covered right now.
Yeah.
And I can focus on making sure we have the best content coming out. So I think it'd be good use of funds, but none of us are there yet. My employees are all very young. I'm not young, but my wife's pretty young, and she said like, I'll be ready in a year. So I told her like the ship of me being a young father has sailed. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah. You guys should all have kids around the same time. So not only is it a daycare, but
they got friends to play with.
Friends to play with. You can all educate at the same level.
Exactly.
Can we hear one of those big scary goals?
Oh, let's see. So you ever see Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory on MTV? You might be too young.
No, I have seen it.
You have seen it. When I was a kid and watching Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory, I'm like, that's it. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want at some point in my life. I want a giant warehouse full of all the coolest stuff, and I don't know how to get it. But now I'm actually at a point where like essentially what we do every day on our YouTube channel is like miniature Fantasy Factory stuff. And I'm like, what if we had the revenue to build out like a 20 to 30,000 square foot facility where we shot our YouTube videos, but all of these 1 million+ subscribers we have could come and hang out with us and play on all the stuff we're using in the videos. Yeah. That's what I'd love to build
I smile because I feel like that's Carson's dream too.
It's every young man's dream to have like a Fantasy Factory. But for me, with like, let's say call it $1 million build out, I would just sit there lonely and bored. But now if I can invite 1 million subscribers to come play with me, and I sound like a child, a 39-year-old man child who just wants to have a half pipe and have kids come skate with me. Like that's all I want.
Exactly. So, have all your best friends, 1 million+.
Or like I went out and visited one of my best friends in Cleveland, and he's got a couple little girls. I think they're like 6 and 8, and they have big cousins who are like 10 and 13. And these kids, you'd think like Brad Pitt walked in the door. They're like, oh my God, it's the YouTuber. I just loved that these 10 and 12-year-olds like loved hanging out with me and wanted to play in the pool, and like do cool stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm a kid at heart, and I just, I want to inspire the next generation to find a love for fitness. And again, it can be anything. And I tell these kids that, a lot of kids will DM me and say, hey, I've always wanted to be fit, but I'm overweight and I don't like team sports and maybe fitness isn't for me. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. You just haven't found what's right for you. I'm like, you need to go try competitive bike riding. And if you hate that, go out and try, speed walking. And if you hate that, try yoga. And if you hate that, try swimming. And if you hate that, there's 100 different ways to find a love for fitness. And everyone's different. Like, I love fitness probably more than anyone you'll ever meet. But if you asked me to go to a Pilates class, I'd just be like, that's not happening. I'm sorry. Nothing against Pilates, because I'm sure there are people out there who love their Pilates class. Similarly, we were talking earlier about treadmills, and people who do all their miles on treadmills. If you said, Nick, you can only run on a treadmill, I'm just not going to do it. And there are times when I run on a treadmill because, I need to dial in pace or it's icy outside. There's definitely a place for that. But like, my wife only wants to run on a treadmill. She hates running outside.
Why?
I don't know.
That's crazy.
I know it's crazy to me, but to each their own, right? And so when I get these messages from these kids, I just say, one, you clearly are onto something. Like, you want to be fit. That's step one. Like choosing to want to find a love for fitness is step one. And then it's just about trial and error. Sample 100 different types of workouts until you find something that you just get so excited about. It's the best part of your day. I was in my CrossFit gym the other day, and there's some people at the CrossFit gym that you can tell don't love CrossFit, but they feel like kind of obligated to get their workout in. And they were like, oh, thank God this is over. I can finally get my day started. I'm like, this is the best part of the day.
Yeah.
This 1 hour that we get to be here with no distractions and working out and like being part of this little community that is Treeline CrossFit. I'm like, that's the best hour. And I just want everybody to find something that they look forward to the way I look forward to my CrossFit classes. Like, it's the highlight of their day.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm so interested that you didn't like training and that you didn't like the process.
No.
But it's probably that you didn't like having to be so regimented.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
And I definitely learned to love it towards the end of my career, where I could tell, like, this isn't going to last much longer, like, try to really savor it. But middle distance running is hard. It's really hard. Yeah. And, like, I think the thing for me was, you know, if I could have supplemented it with more biking and swimming, maybe I'd have enjoyed it more, but you can't. You got to get the miles in.
Yeah.
And I remember days where I'd just be so tired and so beat up. And I'd say, I went to school for 4 years so I wouldn't have to do manual labor. And that's all I do. I'd be screaming at my coach. I'm like, all I do is manual labor all day. And he'd just like slap me upside the head and go do your miles.
Yeah, it sounds like your coach was a great sport.
He was awesome. He'd let me whine. And then he'd be like, are you done?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. He's like, now go run.
Let me know if this is too intrusive, but I'm
you can ask me
so
anything.
Curious because I love, you know, the growth of partnerships, especially, you know, family.
Yeah.
What's your wife thinking her 10-year goal is? Like, if she was to dream really
well, I'm gonna have
big.
to speak for her, unfortunately.
Do
we
it.
talk about it a lot. I think she's 29 and she's really excited to become a mom. So it obviously is going to center around kids and what can we do to make sure that they have the best life possible.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like we're really worried about raising spoiled brats. I'll say that because she grew up in Issaquah, Washington, surrounded by money, and I came through the Catholic school system in Idaho, so there was a lot of money around. And I am a really simple guy. I drive a 7-year-old pickup truck. I've never bought clothes. Like, I just wear whatever I can get donated or find. So like we're pretty simple in that sense, but we really want to have kind of, you know, the family nearby and a couple kids. And I think that she's a really ambitious person in terms of like feeling accomplished. Like, she wants to create something. So instead of, you know, creating a business for somebody else and watching that business, you know, grow for somebody else, now she gets to move into a scenario where she's really part of the family business and creating things for the family business. She said the other day, I'm just so excited that I can control my destiny for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
She's like, for so long, it was like, I'm helping this person build this business or helping this person build this business. She's like, I'm helping my family build the family business now. And she's just super excited about it. So I'm like, go.
Yeah.
Whatever you need, let me know.
Yeah, that's so special. Yeah. I love working, you know, Carson basically changed his whole career to come.
What was your career?
It was, I worked in natural resources, doing like wildfire mitigation.
Oh, cool.
And I was heading towards like firefighting.
Yeah, very cool. What part of the country?
Hawaii.
Nice.
Yeah, where we both grew up. And we came to this point where I was like, are you going to come travel with me? And and also things were going to the wayside. Had too many projects. Yeah. Things were failing. Brooks was mad at me, rightfully so. You know, they're like, you're not racing well. You're not posting on social media. And you need to quit like your 3 other jobs.
Get focused.
Yeah, and get focused. And it's just been so cool building a family business together, because that's what it is. Even if it's not like a family business like you would have seen 20 years ago, you know?
I mean, the businesses that we are building in 2022, 2023 are different than any business that's ever been built before, you know, because we have access to tools that nobody ever had before. I was telling T the other day, I'm like, the best and worst thing that ever happened to me was the internet, because in some ways it's just all intrusive and you can never get away from it, but it's allowed me to build a really cool community and a really cool business and allow me to live in Eugene, Oregon. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the internet. There were no jobs for people in Eugene, Oregon 20 years ago, 30 years ago, unless you wanted to get into teaching or forestry. And now here I can be based exactly where I want to be based, doing what I want to be doing, but still make good money and have the community that I wanted to have.
That's so cool and so special. You're going to stay in Eugene for a while, you think?
For the short term. Maybe for the long term. I don't know. I love Eugene. I bought a house there in 2006 when I first moved there to be with Nike. And though I bounced around a lot, I always have had a house there. I love the community, love that it's Tracktown, USA. I love the fishing. I love the hiking. I love the beer, the food. There's not a better place on planet Earth.
Yeah.
It's missing one thing, and that's our family. Like, my family's in Boise, her family's in Washington. So I could see us, after having kids, maybe like sitting down and saying like, okay, what do we want that to look like? But right now, I don't think there's a better place in the world for us. Eugene is, you've been there.
Yeah, I've been there.
If you guys haven't been to Eugene, I don't work for the city tourism board. I'm telling you, it's the place.
Yeah, it is really amazing. I adore Eugene. The only thing I don't like is the gray skies. But
yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
and I like the winter. So one thing I was mentioning is like when you don't have to run through it anymore, you find something in the winter that you just fall in love with. Like it could be skiing, for example.
Yeah.
For me, it's winter steelhead fishing. Like the steelhead fishing, your audience can't see this, but my screensaver is a giant wild steelhead right out of the ocean.
Wow, that thing is huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 30-inch wild steelhead. And so that's what I do every Saturday. I just go find a river and I fish for wild steelhead. And the winter fishing is so much better than the summer fishing that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the winter. Here we
Why
go.
is that? How come it's better in the winter?
So we don't have natural summer steelhead in most of the rivers in Oregon. And so if you want to catch a wild steelhead, the winter is the only time that they're going to come into the rivers.
Yeah.
These are rainbow trout that follow life very similar to salmon. They're born in the river. They go out to the ocean. They get really big. Then 3 years later, they come back to have babies. And we harass them and take pictures with them and then gently let them go. Yeah. I'd always let them go. I've never bunked a wild steelhead, not about to.
Yeah. And is it illegal to eat them?
In some rivers, you can kill them.
Yeah.
But our steelhead populations are so depleted that anyone who bunks a steelhead is like,
get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah. So you're so positive and clearly very happy and
not always.
And
it hasn't always been that way.
And that's what I was going to ask, and I think probably your fans have seen so many of your highs and maybe your lows too. But what are some of those lows? And speak as plainly or tell me to shut up as you want to, but I'm just curious.
I can go through. I'm a pretty positive person. I do notice this about myself that I'm not bipolar, I'm not manic depressive, but I have dips, like I run pretty high, but then sometimes it's just seasonal, sometimes it's cyclical, but I'll have dips and I just kind of like shrug my shoulders and know I'll get through it. And I always bounce back. There have been a couple times in my life where I've been, I would say, clinically depressed.
Yeah.
The first time was in college when I couldn't run. I had to have double plecectomy in my knees to get my plica removed. And I couldn't run for a year. And I just won 2 national titles. And I'm like, I'm the guy in D3 and now I can't even run, and that sent me into a pretty big tailspin. That was for the first lesson and a very important lesson for me that I had put all of my identity into running. I wasn't just a guy who ran, I was a runner. And I learned very quickly that for me to have a long and healthy career, I couldn't be a runner, I had to be a guy that ran.
Yeah.
You understand the difference?
Oh, yeah.
So I joined a fraternity and I just drank beer and, I fished more and I went hiking more and fell in love with nature again. And eventually I got healthy and I became a runner again. But I didn't lose the lesson of, hey, you need to have hobbies. You need to have other extracurriculars or they're going to go into a tailspin the next time you get injured. So I kind of, when I talk about like telling coach, hey, Fridays are sacred to me, like don't bother me Fridays. Like I learned to carve out other interests and have a more multifaceted personality, more multifaceted set of interests to get me through those harder times. The other big depression I went through that jumps out at me really obviously was when I left Nike for Brooks. And I'm not saying that because I left Nike or because I didn't like Brooks. It was breaking up with my team and my coach.
Yeah.
I've been through a couple bad breakups. It felt like breaking up with a really serious girlfriend or boyfriend, like really serious partner. I loved my coach. I loved Eugene. I loved Oregon Track Club Elite. And I didn't want to leave. But, I knew that for my career to continue to progress, I needed to. And to switch from Eugene to Seattle and Mark Rowland to Danny Mackey and, everything that had to come with it from OTC to the Beasts, it was hard. It was really hard. It was the best thing I ever did, and I'm really glad I did because I had so much fun in Seattle. I met my wife there. I was able to extend my career much longer than I would have if I hadn't had stayed in Eugene. It gave me some perspective on what Eugene was to me. It wasn't just a place that I was forced to go when I signed a deal with Nike. It was a place that was truly my home. So everything happened the right way, but I just had such a hard time seeing the opportunity because I was so much grieving the loss of this thing that had been so important to me, which was my team and my coach.
Yeah.
I remember and I had a sports psychologist my entire career. And if you're a serious athlete, or even not a serious athlete, you should get a sports psychologist. They're amazing. And I remember after like 2 months of just grieving the loss of this team and my coach at OTC, I called my sports psychologist crying, and I'm like, I think I made the wrong choice. And he's like, why? You haven't even given Brooks a chance. You haven't given Seattle a chance yet. I'm like, it's going to suck. I know it. It's just like a bigger version of Portland, and I hate Portland, which Seattle's not. It's an amazing city. Portland, you still kind of suck. But he's like, you know what? He goes, this is what I want you to think about. I know you're grieving the loss of the relationships that you had, with OTC and Nike and Coach Roland. But he's like, you're a guy who likes an adventure. And so what I want you to do right now is focus on everything that's before you. A new city to explore, new trails, an opportunity to work with a coach that's going to maybe bring you workouts you've never seen and take you places you've never thought you could go. Teammates that are going to push you in new ways. And maybe in a bigger city, with more dating opportunities, maybe you meet your future wife there. And I'm like 28 and I'm like, yeah, it's an adventure. There's like one word in my head completely reframed it. And so immediately I stopped. I mean, I still was sad about the lost relationship, but I started focusing more of my energy on let's view this next 3 or 4 years as like the ultimate adventure. And I got the coolest apartment in Seattle, like really like U District, right above this Italian restaurant, like perfect. I had to shout through the nose for this apartment, but I'm like, this is an adventure. This isn't forever, and I'm going to make sure I have the best adventure. And I was able to bike everywhere along the Burke-Gilman and train in these awesome new places and go explore the Olympic range and catch steelhead in New Rivers. And it truly was the best 3 or 4 years of my life. And I look back on the 28-year-old that was, so distraught and crying. I'm like, dude, just stop.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, you're going to be okay. Yeah. I think sometimes, especially depression's a tough one because, the saying you can't see the forest through the trees. It's so true. And every time I've really been depressed, it was a lack of perspective. It had nothing to do with the situation I was in. Maybe 10% to do with the situation I was in. But the crippling depressions that I've been in were 90% based on my inability to step back and see just how incredible my situation on this planet is, as Americans, with so many opportunities, as a young man that was healthy and had a great family life and things that I wanted to do. Like I've always felt very blessed, and any depression that I had was just an inability to see those blessings.
What would you tell someone who is, going through a similar thing or just struggling?
Talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Like talk therapy is brilliant. It doesn't have to be a sports psychologist. It can't be your mom. You need to talk to a professional.
Yeah.
Anybody going through any serious depression, talk to a professional. They're trained to just ask you questions to get you to think outside of the little track that your mind is running in. And Jeff Troche, if you're listening, like the best sports psychologist ever, he never told me what to do. And he never yelled at me. He never shouted at me. He just would ask me questions to get me out of the, one track mind that I had and to think about something in a totally different light. A great example, your listeners will like this one. When I was about to retire, I was really struggling with the idea that I never won an Olympic medal, and I was like, I don't know that I'll ever be able to look back on my career with any amount of happiness because I wasn't able to get an Olympic medal. And he's like, well, Nick, let me tell you about some of the Olympic medalists I know. He goes, they're miserable, and can't even think about their career, look back on their races fondly because they didn't get the Olympic gold medal. And I'm like, oh, really? And he goes, and let me tell you about some of the Olympic gold medalists I know. He goes, they're miserable because they never got the world record. And so that's just what makes athletes great, right? Yeah. You're never happy with what you accomplished. And I don't know, maybe it's misery loves company, but I was like, that's just who we are. And if an Olympic gold medalist can't find satisfaction, and if, even I've heard, Michael Phelps went through a huge depression after he retired. That's just the way we're wired. We're wired to want more. We're always going to focus on how do we get better. And so after he said that, I kind of just said, well, if I can't be the gold medalist that I wanted to be, then maybe I could be the guy that's the most content with what he accomplished. So that was my new goal, was just being super proud of everything I accomplished and trying to just like be grateful that I even had the experience, because, you know, very few of us ever get the chance to see how great we can be in a sport. And I got the chance to do that. I was never hindered by injury, never hindered by financial hardship. I was able to truly watch myself get better and better and better and peak, and then slide down that horrible backside of that curve. But I really got to see exactly how good I could be.
Yeah, that's amazing. Out of curiosity, do you still talk to a professional mental health?
I talk to Jeff about once a quarter, but it's more like just catching up, friends. And I sometimes still give him he calls them SOS calls, like, Jeff, help. But they're more manageable now.
Yeah.
You know, my problems today, they're probably not any bigger than my problems were then, but I'm better at dealing with them. Yeah. If that makes sense. And also addressing them before they spiral out of control.
Yeah. That's so cool. So I love this last question, or second to last, because everyone gets a different answer and everyone sees something in themselves that makes them great. And I believe that anyone who is at the top of what they do, you know, their brains just work a little bit differently. I know my brain is not, you know, I wouldn't say normal. You know, it's just a little
Anybody
bit
running
different.
120 miles a week has
I know there's a
different brain chemistry. Let's just say that.
I have to run that much to be able to assimilate with society. Yeah. But what is it about you that makes you just a little bit different?
Wow, that's a good question. I think that things that, and this will sound weird because I keep talking about how I'm bouncing around. Mm-hmm. Once I latch onto something, it's almost impossible for me to let go of it. A great example is I wanted to be a Boy Scout. I wanted to be an Eagle Scout, and I started Scouts late. I didn't start till I was 13. You have until the day you turn 18 to become an Eagle. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like had fun at 13 and kind of fun at 14, and then you go on to high school and I like don't care about Boy Scouts anymore. I'm more interested in like the girls that I have a crush on, but I couldn't let it go. Mm-hmm. So I'd keep going to Scout camp and I'd keep trying to get the badges, and like true to form, like a month before I turned 18, I got my Eagle Scout. And that was the first time where I recognized like I have to finish what I start. Mm-hmm. I was so proud that I didn't, even though I had all these other distractions, I finished what I started. And I think to a much, much larger extent, college was that way for me. I hated college. I tried to drop out every single semester, but I could not disappoint myself and not finish what I started. Mm-hmm. To the detriment sometimes. Sometimes we should quit what we start. Yeah. It's making us miserable, or we're not happy, we're not finding success. Sometimes it's okay to quit what you start. I can't. I will bang my head through that wall until I finish what I've started. And running's a great example. I should have retired earlier than I did, but I'm like, I have to see this through to the end. Mm-hmm. And I had an idea of what that end was. And, you know, with everything I've ever done, I can't quit until I find some, you know, that finish line. This darn deadlifting challenge. No one should be deadlifting the way I'm deadlifting. It is not a functional lift with what I'm doing. I've injured myself more than I care to admit doing this. I just can't let it go. You know, so I think I find success because once I set a goal and have a finish line in mind, I will not stop until I get there, even if it takes a decade.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's not the healthiest thing in the world,
not.
But it's what has led to some success in my life as well.
But you know what? You know, reaching for successful things, it's never all healthy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't disagree. Running's a great example of that.
Running is a great example of that. And just life in general, anywhere that you find success, you find unbalance. You know?
Yeah, for sure. But what does it mean to be healthy necessarily? And I mean that, like, we all think, oh, health, it's a super obvious thing. It's not obvious.
No.
Not at all. Like, I would say I'm way, way healthier today, mentally and physically, than I ever was as a pro runner. Mm-hmm. And people are like, what are you talking about? You're 10 pounds overweight. I'm like, yeah, and I don't get sick anymore. I used to get sick all the time when I was running because I was, pushing the envelope and I was, trying to stay so lean and, and I was miserable half the time. And now I'm mentally not happy, know? So I think that health and happiness to me is pretty objective, but health is very subjective, and what we define as healthy can be interpreted differently.
Yeah, and can mean like mental, physical,
Yes.
family life. I don't think if someone is content in their life, but everyone hates them,
That's not necessarily
healthy,
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe
that's a good example.
Yeah, right. Like sometimes an asshole is fine with himself,
Yeah, but maybe you need to look outward and see why everyone calls you an asshole.
I try and look at it sometimes as like fulfillment is healthiness. Like I feel very fulfilled, and even though people might question like, you're kind of crazy, like
but you feel fulfilled in that craziness.
Exactly.
So let it happen.
Last one. So what is something that you can name that you're proud of that you haven't talked about on screen before?
Wow.
No one can know except for your wife and family.
Okay, that's a good one. Because as a content creator, that's kind of my job, is like
know.
sharing everything.
That's why I love this question.
Yeah, holy cow. Something I'm really proud of. No one really knows. I mean, obviously my brain goes to like all the like public goal things that I do, but that's not the point of the question. I have been faithful to my wife since the day I met her. I'm not going to use the word playboy in my 20s, but like I traveled the world and I had relationships, and I always thought I will settle down one day, but I kind of like used that like, I'll settle down one day. I'll settle down one day.
Yeah.
And then I met my wife when I was 31, and we started dating, and I have been 100% faithful to her the entire time. Which, if you told 25-year-old Nick, he'd be like, "Yeah, right." No, 100% faithful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what was different about her?
gosh, a lot's different about her. I dated a lot. I'm the weirdo that loved dating. Like I love first dates.
Yeah.
I was on Bumble, Tinder, you name it. And where most people find that very frustrating and annoying, I loved it. I would only go. So those of you listening that are on dating apps, this is my suggestion for you. First date only can be coffee and can only be in the middle of the day. From like 12 to 12:30, you have a hard out. You're committing $3.50 and 30 minutes of your time. And you should be doing that 2 to 3 days a week because it is a numbers game. All right?
Yep.
And you're going to know almost instantly whether you want to see that person again. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, there's no harm, no foul. Be very honest. Like, this isn't working for me. There's no chemistry. Let them go find their partner, right? But you should be finding somebody that you don't have to fall in love with them on day one. It's not going to happen. But you say, hey, I spent 30 minutes having coffee with this person, and at the end of that 30 minutes, I wanted the conversation to continue. And then you guys go get dinner or something, or you go for a walk and you talk longer.
Yeah.
But I loved that. I went on a lot of first dates in Seattle, and a lot of those were just not fun. And the follow-up dates were just
worse.
Even worse. Yeah. And I felt like, I come from Boise, Idaho. I come from like a pretty rural, not humble, but like simple background, And I just wanted somebody down to earth, especially with the fact that my life had been kind of up in the clouds as this pro athlete for the last 10 years. I'm like, I just want to find somebody that has the same values that I have and wants to like create something solid and sustainable and safe with me. And I met Tiana, and she is a dime. Like, she's a perfect 10, but she doesn't walk around like she's a 10. She just really comes from a good family, and she was more nervous than I was, which I'm like, well, you have nothing to be nervous about, So I just felt very at ease with her. I loved her family, and, it's not one of those things where like day one you're like all in, but, I was like, this girl deserves my respect and attention, and it deserves me not messing it up. And so we dated for about a month, and then she actually came to me and she's like, I want to make this more serious. And I was like, okay, cool, me too. And then, we dated for 4 years and then got married. Amazing. So we've been together 7+ years now.
Cool. Yeah. Was that first date coffee?
Yeah, coffee.
30 minutes, and then
30-minute coffee. And also, I think it's really nice if the guy can be more accommodating, which I had all afternoon free. I would usually meet them near their work. Right.
Yeah.
So they feel safe. They're in their neighborhood. I'd say, hey, where do you work? Is there a coffee shop that you like to frequent nearby? And there's this little coffee shop downtown Seattle called Storyville. And we met for coffee, and, I had my 30-minute hard out, but we talked for like an hour.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, listen, I know you're probably late for work. Let me get you back for work. And then we went out for dinner a couple nights later. So I just think dating is really tough.
Yeah.
I think that the internet is your friend. I know a lot of people don't think of it that way, but if dating is a numbers game, the internet is what allows you to have the numbers game.
Yeah.
I didn't like meeting people at bars. I thought that was a less authentic experience where everybody's messed up and shouting and you can't hear anything and you're kind of inebriated anyways. I'm like, that's not as authentic as just having a little back and forth online and then sitting down for coffee.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Yeah. I'm going to tell like 100 people now.
Oh, you want to hear it? So anyone who's been on dating apps is going to hate this. Tiana had never been on a dating app. Her friends talked her into Bumble. Guess what her first Bumble date was?
Yours.
Me. She won and done it.
Yeah, that is so funny. But good for her. Yeah. I went on one Bumble date before. We dated in high school, and I did one Bumble date.
Yeah, how bad was it?
Which he called me on the way to the Bumble date, and I'm like, oh my God. And then, I didn't tell him. And this guy wanted to like talk for days before going on a date. I'm like, no.
No, you don't know what's got time for that.
I know, exactly. I'm like, there
should be the little playful banter in the app for, like 10 messages back and forth. And then it's like, all right, are we going to meet for coffee or not?
Yeah, exactly.
And that would be very direct. I'm like, listen, I'm super busy, which it certainly was. Like maybe not from like noon to 3 every day. I didn't have anything to do.
But managing all your dates.
For my career, I was really focused and busy. And I'm like, listen, I've got 30 minutes and I'd love to meet you for coffee. And sometimes that scared people away. Mm-hmm. Which I'm like, if you don't want to sit down in a very safe, public space and have coffee, then I'm like, I got no time for this.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really nice way. I'm sitting here like I'm the king of online dating. Mm-hmm. I went through a lot of online dating before that was not successful, where I came up with this 30-minute coffee idea, where I'd like meet somebody for a first date for dinner, and then I'm out like $150 for somebody that I don't want to see again.
And hours.
I know, hours of both of our time.
Yeah.
The sooner you can be honest with the person you're dating, like the better, even if you're not interested, especially if you're not interested at all. Mm-hmm. Do yourself a favor. Cut it quick. Do them a favor. Cut it quick. And again, going back to the numbers game, you're going to find somebody. You just got to keep going on these coffee dates. Mm-hmm. And look at it as fun. When I said like I loved the first date, even if I sat down and I had nothing in common with the person, I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere, I loved hearing their story. Yeah. So look at it as a chance to just like hear somebody's unique story. Like, okay, we're both sitting here at this table, 8 billion people, we're here right now. Tell me what got you to this moment. Yeah. And some people had the most incredible stories.
That's so cool.
Even if I didn't want to like date them, I'm still super curious about like how they got there.
And then you learn so much too along the way. My mom is the same way. She's dating now, but I won't say her age, but she got into online dating after moving. She lived in Hawaii for 25 years. Wow. And then
where'd she move?
She moved to New York City, actually.
That's a big change.
Yeah. Well, she was a professional model when she was young, and that's what brought her to Hawaii. Mm. And she started dating people, just going on online dates, and she loved it.
I'm sure. New York would be so much fun.
She had such a blast, and I would always get the best stories from her, and, of course, my mom is, like, beautiful, so she'd have,
more dates than she knew what to do.
More dates than she knew what to do with, and it was so fun to listen to. Now I love her boyfriend now, but that she met on Tinder, so like perfect. It's
awesome.
Yeah,
it's great.
Cool. Well, Nick, I gotta wrap this up, but this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming by. Any last words?
I just hope you guys find a passion for fitness. That's what it's all about. I call it the glue that holds my life together. Yeah. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. A workout each day makes food taste better. It helps you sleep. It makes your relationships better. It gives you more energy. I mean, every single thing in your life is better if you have a relationship with fitness, in my opinion. Me too. And I think something that you didn't mention that is often overlooked is like in this country, everyone feels so bad in their bodies. Like not like emotionally feels bad, not confident in their bodies, but also they're like, why am I painting the toilet every day, and it's just normalized. Like, why does it hurt to sit? Well, it's probably because you're not doing any mobility. I know, you're not doing mobility. Which I hate, but I do it because I want to sit comfortably. Same. I begrudgingly did my mobility right before you walked in. I was like, But if you're, and it's not just about looking in the mirror. I know we all want to have like these like great bodies. It's 10% that. It's 90% just being proud of the automobile that you are piloting. Exactly. And making sure that engine's running well. Exactly. And if you're running in a fog, metaphorically running, if you're living in a fog and living in pain, of course you're not going to feel good about any of it, how you look, how you act.
So that's great advice. I live by that too. I have to.
One last thing. Do you run in the morning or afternoon? You probably run both, don't
Both.
you? Yeah, you're doing those doubles. I learned from a physiologist that humans, it's not like one or the other. Like we're wired differently. And part of this is like how we came to create civilizations where some were like morning people and some were evening people, but at least somebody was always on watch. There are people that hate working out in the mornings. And I don't get it. I only want to work out in the mornings. If I miss my morning workout, it's probably not going to happen.
Same.
Because I hate the afternoon workouts. But there are people that feel the exact opposite. They're like, please, please, please don't make me work out in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you can have the afternoon class.
I know.
But find out who you are.
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't have a love for fitness because you're trying to cram it into an 8 a.m. class when your body does not want to work out at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Find out that schedule that works with your own circadian rhythms. And then, recognize that and use it to your advantage.
And it's physiological. It's not mental. You're not weak for not wanting to work out in the morning.
No, it's not like a discipline thing.
Yeah.
It's just literally how your body responds to the day.
Yeah.
I love morning workouts. It's the first thing I want to do in the morning. I think that there is a scientific advantage to that in that kind of triggers things in your body to happen throughout the day that need to happen, synapses firing better and more energy. But that's not to say that having an afternoon workout isn't going to be very beneficial for you as well. One argument also for the morning workout for you busy, people out there is if you get it done in the morning, no matter what happens the rest of the day, because there will be curveballs and fires thrown at you throughout the day,
done.
You got your workout in.
Yeah.
That was kind of a cardinal rule of being a distance runner, especially if you were home with family or if you were traveling. You get your workout done in the morning so that no matter what, priority number one was taken care of.
Yeah. When I'm not living by that,
Yeah.
everything else falls apart for me. And I
100%.
don't train. It's bad.
You know what the hardest thing when I stopped running professionally was? I didn't know when to shower.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh.
that weird?
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't showered in 3 days because I always shower after my workout.
Yeah.
And I haven't worked out in 3 days. I should probably go shower. What a weird thing to lose track of.
I know. That's even for me now, especially in the wintertime, if I'm not training, I'm like, do I need to? Probably.
Like, when do I eat? I always eat my first meal after working out. Just kind of floating through life aimlessly.
Yeah.
The workout is the glue that holds my life together. I really mean that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much,
Thank
Nick.
you.
This
My
is
pleasure.
awesome.
Yeah.
Give me one of these.
Yeah.
Sick.
All right. Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Good stuff, you guys. Thanks.
Hey.
That was so fun.
That was good. Good questions. Yeah.
I try to ask questions that you probably haven't been asked before. So.
Those were great. I haven't done a podcast in 2 years.
Nice.
So it's all fresh material.
Yeah.